The Jack Reacher book series, written by Lee Child, is a captivating collection of crime thriller novels that have garnered immense popularity and critical acclaim. With a total of 26 books published to date, the series follows the adventures of Jack, no middle name, Reacher, former military police officer turned wanderer and vigilante. With his sharp intellect, formidable physicality, and relentless pursuit of justice, Reacher quickly became a beloved and iconic figure in the world of crime fiction. Lee Child's writing style is characterized by its gripping stories, meticulous attention to detail, and the ability to create suspenseful and unpredictable plotlines. Each book in the series presents a self-contained story, allowing readers to delve into the world of Jack Reacher without necessarily needing to read the entire series in chronological order. However, the books do offer subtle character development and recurring themes that enhance the overall reading experience for those who choose to follow the series from beginning to end. The character made his live-action debut in 2012, with Tom Cruise, rather controversially, cast as Reacher. After 2 movies, the character was eventually developed into a TV series starring Alan Ritchson. Season 1 was based on the first novel, Killing Floor, and received high critical acclaim. Hey everyone, I'm Brendan Kelleher. Season 2 of Reacher is based on the 11th book in the series, titled Bad Luck and Trouble, by the series creator Lee Child. The story begins as one of Reacher's old comrades from the Special Investigators Unit during his time in the US Army is murdered by being thrown out of a helicopter. Soon after, Reacher is contacted by his old teammate, Francis Neely, who informs him of the death of their old comrade. Reacher and Neely discover that their old teammates are being targeted for assassination, and reunite the crew to discover who is behind the conspiracy and get revenge. Now, just in case you didn't know, I'm a huge fan of the Jack Reacher books. I've read just about all of them. I think they're very addictive. Reacher is a character that, like James Bond, is just pure wish fulfillment. He's big, he's tough, but he's also extremely intelligent. I've often described him as being a cross between Rambo and Sherlock Holmes. It was actually the first Jack Reacher movie by Tom Cruise that introduced me to the character. I understand that there was a lot of controversy over this casting, but I hadn't read the books at that point. And I'm a big Tom Cruise fan, so that didn't matter to me. I got into the books then, and I could understand why the fans were upset. In the books, Reacher is described as being a giant muscular man and physically imposing. As much as I like Cruise, he doesn't quite fit that description, but Alan Ritchson clearly does. I thoroughly enjoyed the first season. I thought it was a great adaptation of the book. Although I was surprised to see the character of Francis Neely in it, given that the character isn't introduced in the novels until the 6th one in the series, without fail. What's interesting about Season 2 is that it's based on Bad Luck and Trouble, where Neely does have a large role to play in. I can understand why the writers made these changes, as she's a very popular recurring character in the books, and introducing her early in Season 1 lays the groundwork for her larger role here in Season 2. Also, if you go back to my review of Season 1 from nearly 2 years ago, I called it out. I knew they were going to do this by mentioning Bad Luck and Trouble as the book that they were most likely going to do next. I have no problem with this personally. Books are obviously a very different medium than TV shows and movies, so you have to expect changes. Reacher isn't the most talkative guy, but his thoughts can be verbalized in the writing. In the TV show, he can't just be quiet all the time, so it makes sense that he has someone to talk to. I already liked the Neely character in the books, but I absolutely love how she's portrayed in this series. This is a character that could come across as very cringe in a lesser actress's hands, but she's very well written, portrayed extremely well by Maria Sten. I really hate the phrase strong female character, and it's a term that's thrown around a lot these days, but Neely is just a very well written character, full stop. She's not an insufferable girl boss like pretty much every female character in Star Trek, or Star Wars, or Marvel these days. On a related subject, and it's a shame I have to mention it these days, but this show is so refreshing that it's not woke. Reacher's team is made up of men and women, and the latter are just as capable as the men. But there's a refreshing lack of girl boss moments, which seems to plague a lot of modern TV and films. This is what diversity should be. Like I said in one of my Star Trek videos, you don't have to knock one gender down just to prop up another. Speaking of diversity, I noticed watching the credits that there's a lot of that behind the scenes as well. Several female writers and directors involved in the making of the show. And you know what? I think that's great. Reacher is very old-fashioned in that it's clearly geared more to a male audience, given its macho lead character and the crushing violence. But I'm glad to say that despite the fact that women are involved in both writing and directing the show, that there's a welcome lack of modern-day gender politics. People should be hired to work on a project based on their talent, not their gender. Now, as far as the book is concerned, Bad Luck and Trouble is, in all honesty, not one of my favourites. It's been a few years since I read it. Don't get me wrong, it's a good one, but it's a very unusual one given that it's a team-based story. Most Reacher stories are where he's on his own, drifts into some town or city somewhere, and gets involved in some kind of conspiracy. Here, he's back with his old teammates, so there's a familiarity there, and he's reunited with an old flame. There are flashbacks to his time leading the 110th, which I honestly can't remember if it's part of the book or not. There are several prequel novels in the series, such as Night School and The Affair, which deal with his time in the army. No spoilers here, but the subplot of these flashbacks provide backstory and not just his relationship with his teammates, the reason why he left the army. This is altogether different from The Affair, which is set just several months before the beginning of the first novel, Killing Floor. Now, one thing that the first season excelled at was the action, and I'm glad to say that it's just as good here in season 2, and on a bigger scale. Reacher is a character who just takes down his enemies with brute force and quick efficiency. It's not martial arts, it's just his own style of fast and efficient brutality. In the books, it's often stated that Reacher has a rule when it comes to fights: hit first and hit hard. There's one particular scene where this biker gang tried to take him and his team down. When their leader was talking too much and getting too close to Reacher, I knew things were going to get violent very quickly. One thing I'm glad that they don't shy away from is Reacher's sadism. He has a very brutal sense of right and wrong, has no sympathy whatsoever for his enemies, and shows no mercy. In one scene, he kills several assassins sent to kill him at a construction site, buries their bodies in cement, and then says he feels like getting a beer. Also, again, no spoilers, but one potentially controversial scene in a hospital has him committing flat-out murder on a defenseless opponent who killed one of his own. This guy is unarmed, completely defenseless, and despite giving Reacher vital information, is shown no mercy. It seems like this that convey Reacher as more of an anti-hero than anything else. I'm very curious how fans and the general audience will react to this scene. One thing I will say about the fight scenes in this season is that Reacher is in danger of turning into a Steven Seagal character, in the sense that literally no one has a chance of beating him, even when he's outnumbered. I never got the impression that he was in much danger this season, especially since he was backed up by his teammates. There are a couple of novels in the book series such as Persuader, and the most recent one I read called The Sentinel, where he has a big fight with opponents who are even bigger than him. I'd like to see them do that in the next season. I still think the fire escape fight and the fight against the Slaughterhouse crew in season 1 are the best fights in the whole series so far. As far as the production values go, it's definitely a step up from the first series. While season 1 was largely set in a small town, season 2 is set in several major cities and has a much larger scope. There's some slightly wonky CGI in the final episode, but overall the show is very well made. I usually don't take note of camera work that much, but there's one particular shot in episode 4 which is extremely impressive, where Neely and Dixon get out of a car, surround a house, enter a building, which looks like it was shot with a drone. The camera follows them from the car, and all seemingly in the same shot, floats over the house and follows them around the back. It's extremely impressive. It's very similar to the part in John Wick Chapter 4, where a camera floats over John, as he goes from room to room shooting at all these guys like something out of a video game. Robert Patrick plays the main villain, Shane Langston. Patrick, of course, is most well known as the T-1000 from Terminator 2, and has had a long career playing villains in film and TV. This is the kind of character he can play in his sleep at this point. He's a particularly vile character here. Interestingly, there's a not-so-subtle reference to Terminator in the dialogue for Patrick's character in one scene, which I thought was kind of cool. Vernon Kingsley plays the secondary villain known only as AM, and is particularly frightening as a cross between James Bond and the Terminator. He seems to kill just about everyone he comes in contact with. As I said earlier, Bad Luck and Trouble, which this season is based on, is a very atypical Reacher story. and that he's backed up by a team that he's known for a long time. Most Reacher stories are where he wanders into town, meets people for the first time, and gets involved in some kind of local conspiracy. I tend to prefer those kind of stories, as Reacher is essentially a loner. However, Season 2 of Reacher is still great knuckle-bruising entertainment, and the best show currently on television as far as I'm concerned. I have to give Amazon credit where it's due. They produce a lot of woke garbage like The Rings of Power and The Wheels of Time, but they've also produced great book adaptations like Reacher and The Terminal List. I do find it funny, however, that The Rings of Power, which cost something like $1 billion, was hated by fans and flopped badly. But Reacher and Terminal List, which cost a fraction of the budget of Rings of Power, has been embraced by both fans and the general audience, and the streaming numbers have been huge. Overall, I thoroughly recommend you watch Reacher Season 2. It's not quite as good as Season 1, but still terrific entertainment. I do hope they get back to basics with Season 3, however, and have a more traditional Reacher story, where he doesn't team up with any old friends like Neely. My personal hope is that they adapt my own personal favourite book in the series, Worth Dying For, or possibly The Sentinel. Not Past Tense though, that one was not good, and the only Reacher novel I couldn't finish. But anyway, that's it for my spoiler-free review of Reacher Season 2. Look out for my full spoiler review coming soon. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then please give it a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Share with your friends, click the bell for notifications, and let me know in the comments. Have you seen Reacher Season 2? What do you think of it? Most importantly, hope you all look after yourselves, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye for now.